Panthers finished the road trip strong in Minnesota, winning convincingly and finish it over 500.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, December 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Florida Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on the show to discuss everything in the world of the Panthers. And the Panthers coming into this one, a nationally televised game for them, went up against a shorthanded Minnesota Wild team who the Panthers and the Wild, back and forth a little bit for them. Some goals that were called back, but at the end of the second period, in the final 5 minutes, the Panthers really, truly took control thanks to Matthew Tkachuk and 2 goals and really poured it on in the third period, going to their shutdown brand of hockey. But at the beginning of this game, it was goals from going to the far side and off the post for the Panthers to get them two leads right before they broke this one open for them, and in a 6-1 road victory against the Minnesota Wild, and snaps a 3-game losing streak to the Wild as well. But joining me on this edition of the show to break down the 6-1 win for the Panthers over Minnesota, he is from the podcast that's supposed to talk about Panthers hockey, but sometimes they don't. He is TJ Peterson from Panther Pourri. TJ, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Good to be back.
Yeah, grateful to have you back here as well. So, man, for the Panthers, when it came to this one, I mean, for going into this matchup, I mean, when it came to at the end of the road trip, you think about coming in like with Barkov returning to the lineup and taking a morning skate, and then the sacrifice that Sam Bennett had to make even in the previous game to play when Barkov was sick. And then, it just goes to show also the give and take when Murray spoke about Barkov being sick, so Bennett played, and then taking turns with Bennett having his illness and being out of the lineup. But really, the Panthers not missing a beat and reuniting a line of Matthew Tkachuk and Sasha Barkov together, which we haven't seen in a while for these two. And really, the mentality of the Panthers, the Florida Panthers identity, truly continued in this one, getting an early goal thanks to Aaron Ekblad with that third line of Samoskevich, Jesper Bokus, and Erod on. Later on in the game, the Panthers get one off the rush after the Minnesota Wild don't connect on a stretch pass and they counter with it. But really, the fact that the Panthers stuck to their DNA with that, and also with reuniting it, and unfortunately a goal from Barkov on a sweet dish from Matthew Tkachuk where they had the Minnesota Wild pinned in their own end, where the entry was 46 seconds before. Really, it was just an incredible hockey game to watch, and for the Panthers just asserting their dominance. And really, it was another one of those games where even on the road, the Panthers wore the opposition down.
There's no question about that. They came in waves all night, which you may not have expected given that Barkov and Tkachuk were playing together. And then, Mackie Samoskevich gets maybe the sweetest goal of the night off the post, off the crossbar and in. His 6th goal of the season. It's always a positive to see his offensive progression. I don't ever think he's going to be the guy that they talk about as dethroning Sasha Barkov for the Selke, but he's somebody that has some offensive ceiling to reach. And if you're going to shoot the puck like that and make room to shoot it like he did, good things are going to happen. So that's very positive. And this is a game where, Minnesota, they looked pretty good in the first period.
Yeah.
I think the Panthers also look good. I was thinking to myself, these are two of the best teams in the NHL, executing at close to the peak of their powers. I thought Fleury was actually playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing he can do about that Mackie shot, like off the post, off the crossbar. Like, you're covering almost the entirety of the net. And like, how much of the net are you supposed to cover? Like, you're not as big as the net. He's not, the like whale, or what was it in that Mass Mutual commercial?
Oh yeah.
Wallace? Yeah, I think he can't do that. So there was a weak goal that he let in. I think it was the Mikkola goal that he probably will say, yeah, that was a bad one. But Marc-Andre Fleury, he kept them in this game. They just kept coming and coming and coming. And eventually that line, Barkov, Tkachuk, it was just overpowering the Wild.
Yeah, and Minnesota was getting their fair share of rush chances early. There was one where Bob had a save on Ryan Hartman where Matthew Tkachuk was on the back check. And then, man, there was one – if there was one missed opportunity for the Minnesota Wild, there was this 1-2-on-1 where they were offside. I forget who it was that was offside. I believe it was Zuccarello who was off it. Yeah, it was Zuccarello, looking back at my notes there. And then obviously the missed opportunity on that goaltender interference call for them, where Marco Rossi skated through the crease. And then even Paul Maurice speaking during the intermission interview about giving praise to Miles Fee, John Konjemi, and also giving credit to Sergei Bobrovsky, saying he's not a flopper. And just, we don't see this out of Sergei Bobrovsky unless he's actually hit in the crease, which also goes to the fact that of integrity of the game. So that's another thing of that there's something of respect there for Bob, but also for when you really saw a little bit of signs where the Panthers were starting to take control. Only allowed 2 shots against Minnesota Wild in the first 7 minutes and 30 seconds. There's one play where Nosek had like a poke off of Chisholm's stick, and unfortunately he didn't finish off the breakaway. But you were starting to see signs for that, and that's really what led to the domination of that top line of the goal that was disallowed due to offside, and then the Panthers. How quickly they were able to get it out of their end. It was a goal of different kinds. Low to high play, in transition, stretch passes, feeding down the middle where there was a quick touches. It was not there was not pucks staying on the Panthers sticks long when it came to getting it back from the flanks to the high slot as well. But it really is. It's also the net front opportunities, as we saw with one of the Tkachuk goals on the second or third opportunities where Verhaeghe had one, and then Tkachuk stuck a fork in it. So it was multiple, as you said, waves that the Panthers came in.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Fleury held up for about as long as he could, but they were just firing on all cylinders. Like, this game for me was definitely more about the Panthers finding their game and executing to the highest level than the Wild just not raising to that level, or, mailing it in, having a bad showing. And you could probably say something similar about that weird game that basically had the same score line, with the away team winning 5 or 6-1, I think it was, when Minnesota visited at the Amerant Bank Arena. I forgot what the name of the arena was for a second. Might as well have called it Bank Atlantic Center or something. Minnesota was just really good that night, and the Panthers were just really good this night. They're coming off of that emotional high in the Stanley Cup final rematch, Game 8, as some people have called it, and they got the victory in that one. 6-5 game, always an emotional affair when you're in an 11-goal thriller that ends in a 1-goal margin. Mm-hmm. They kept it going, and there's that light at the end of the tunnel as far as the holiday break. It's a slightly longer break than they're used to getting between some of the games, but they'll be able to relax at home, celebrate the holidays with their families, and maybe that's motivating them here a little bit to finish this part of the season strong.
Yeah, and with the trade freeze coming in less than 24 hours for them, it's real for the Panthers. It's been for them how Paul Maurice described how they finished it off in Calgary of just not having their legs going and then getting up for a game, and then also not downgrading the importance of that win, even if the Panthers aren't the ones that lost in the final, knowing that on the other side, it was an opposition that you got to know in the Edmonton Oilers over a 2-week period. I mean, maybe it was 3 weeks, not with the amount of gaps that were in between the travel days of the Stanley Cup final, but also just continuing to ride that. And the thing that the benefit of this road trip, TJ, in my opinion, is that there were no 2-day gaps. It was just game, off day, game, off day. And it really helped the Panthers carry that momentum. There's no practice time in between that. There's not going to be practice in between now and Friday's game against the St. Louis Blues. So I think that also contributes big to how the Panthers got here.
Yeah, it looks like they're playing loose, but I mean, I'm also seeing some set plays that are working out well. I don't think that any of the goals tonight were on the power play. One. They did. There was one on the power play. Yeah. Oh, Tkachuk scored on the power play, of course. Yep. So they have some pretty effective set plays on the power play. I don't feel like there's a tremendous amount of improvisation, at least, relatively in the NHL. But they know what works. And even though the opposition knows that they're trying to get it to Reinhart in the slot, stopping it is something different altogether. There was that one play that I really thought of. This wasn't even a goal, where there was a cross ice Royal Road pass, as they call it, to Evan Rodriguez. And against a non-Hall of Fame goaltender, that's probably a, wide open net. But Marc-Andre Fleury has been around the block. He knows what to expect. And he read the play, from page 1 to the back cover. That was, it's really odd to be talking about how well I thought Fleury was playing in the first half of this game, considering he gave up 6 goals.
Yeah. So,
but he that was another one that they could have scored on. There were a few chances that he was good on. And, we were talking about one for offside, called off for offside 45 seconds before the goal. I'll quickly say about those two, I think this game should have ended 7-2. We shouldn't be using replay to take back goals that are, unless they are just so obviously wrong. And that's not to say that the Panthers video staff, and I guess the Minnesota video staff too, didn't do their job. And I think the referees did their job too. This is consistent with the precedent that we've seen for goaltender interference. And of course, offside, that's pretty linear. If it's offside or not. But as many people have pointed out, if you're stuck in your own zone for 30 seconds, that's on you. You got to get the puck out of the zone. And as far as the goaltender interference one goes, I get it. It is goaltender interference. But given that it was called a goal on the ice, it was pretty close to that line of how much time does Bob have to get reset after Rossi makes that contact, which is, not deliberate, incidental contact for sure, which is still, you're not permitted to do that if it prevents the goaltender from playing his position. But it's a little bit iffy with that amount of time. I would prefer if the NHL changed its replay system a little bit so that those 2 goals would have stood.
Yeah, I mean, if you're pinned in your end for a long time and the offside doesn't necessarily affect that, I can understand why it would be a necessary. It would be a change that would be wanted, especially if we're going by pixels when it comes to these reviews. But hey, that's there for a reason. For them. But let's transition over to segment number 2, where we give our 3 stars of the game and the moment where we thought the game was won. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. And if you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks. It's the best way to turn your sports knowledge into real money, whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports. Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on all the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $300 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December when your picks hit. PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONHL and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly, and you can do that all on PrizePicks. Run your game. Also, today's episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. And the World Series, Super Bowl, Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork also protects your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are a perfect teammate that when shopping our customized, affordable insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, best version of you. SelectQuote's exclusive policies can reward that effort. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL to get started. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday as the Panthers defeat the Minnesota Wild by a final score of 6-1 in Minnesota to finish the road trip at 3-2-0. But also, there is an update on Jesper Boquist after taking a check where his helmet flew off and then landed on the ice due to the whiplash. And this is what Paul Maurice had to say. Quote, he'll get looked at tonight and looked at tomorrow morning. He's going to be okay. He's healthy, but we don't know if there's an injury there yet or not. Close quote. So it's just a wait and see game based on Jesper Boquist. So we hope that he is all right after everything. Also, Niko Mikkola, back-to-back games with a goal for the first time in his career and career high for him. So, and after he scored the goal, after that board battle one, where, like you mentioned, one that Marc-Andre Fleury would want back, he almost got another one off the rush shortly after. So credit to Niko Mikkola on just how he's able to get activated in the plays consistently. But 3 stars of the game. So I'm going to go with third star Carter Verhaeghe for the Florida Panthers. Really was very impactful in getting to the net front. And usually we know him as just an outside shooter for him, but really his impact really in the slot really made a difference for some of the goals that the Panthers scored in this one and some of the touch passes that he had. Number 2, Aaron Ekblad. Not only did those two, the goal and the assist to Mackie Samoskevich on the stretch pass, but how well he was protecting the puck, shielding it, chipping it up when necessary to get it out of the zone for him. I thought Aaron Ekblad really set the tone early for the Panthers and help them really, steadily go around throughout the game. And then number 1, got to go with Matthew Tkachuk. And for the listeners who don't have any type of social media or on Twitter, every time Matthew Tkachuk scores multiple goals, I love using that still image from Star Wars Episode 3 where Anakin Skywalker has the yellow eyes after going to Mustafar. So that is a tradition that I continue to have every time Matthew Tkachuk just continues to be that dude for him. But TJ, your 3 stars of the game for this one.
I was ready to go with a pretty similar group. And, 2 of them, I feel like it has to be, you can't just say different names just to be different. The one I'll say a different name on is, Verhaeghe definitely played well enough to be one of the 3 stars. I'll give it to Mackie. He did get the assist on the Ekblad goal.
Yep.
His goal was just so pretty that even though Verhaeghe probably minute 0 to minute 60 was a more effective player, I'll give it to Mackie just because that goal was so beautiful. No goalie is stopping that in this universe. Maybe a walrus, but that's pretty much it. And second star, Aaron Ekblad, you had it right. I mean, is it just me or is this guy starting to play some of the best hockey of his career? I definitely didn't expect him to be suddenly getting better as he ages closer to his 30s. Now, he is still relatively young. This is where you expect the aging curve to dip a little bit. just because he looks a little bit older than he is. Maybe that's why we thought, oh, he's regressing. But he's got that old man pickup game going now where it's really hard to get the puck off of him. It's pretty easy for him to get the puck off of you. And he is a little bit like a Nikola Jokic kind of figure in that he may not necessarily be the most fleet of foot, but like he can put the puck where he wants to put it and use some mixed direction. And I didn't really think that he had that in him, but I'm starting to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your number one star is Verhaeghe,
Matthew Tkachuk,
right?
Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, just at his Matthew Tkachuk best, getting to the front of the net, finding the seams that he can put the puck into and making it look easy. And when he's doing that, like you think to yourself, it seems like such a hard game, but Matthew Tkachuk makes it look simple. It's like, why didn't they just think to score? Like, of course, that's what they should have done. They're so stupid. That's how Matthew Tkachuk makes it look sometimes.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned it on your show today about just it's not necessarily ideal of like what we imagined at the beginning of the season of Aaron Ekblad just being that quarterback on the power play. When we first a lot of at least I did in the beginning of the season was thinking, okay, maybe you mix a Nate Schmidt in there, maybe you mix an Adam Boquist. They experimented with Uvis Balinskis, but we're not seeing Aaron Ekblad on that left flank taking the one-timers, but also we're seeing a lot of the switches with Sasha Barkov going from the point to the left flank down low, and then the movement on the power play with Aaron Ekblad basically the only one standing still up top. The fact that there hasn't been indecision for him has really truly helped this power play really succeed.
That is a great point. You feel very confident that when he gets the puck, it's going to be, moved productively. It's either the right time for a shot on net or, maybe he finds Tkachuk, finds Verhaeghe, finds somebody else. But you just don't feel like he's going to fumble it or like stumble around and all of a sudden break away going the other way like you might have in the past. Like there's a level of comfort there now that we'll have to see, continue, because it has only really been a few games that he's been on the power play one quarterback spot, to be totally honest. But right now you can't really complain about it. Now, you may want to like limit his minutes because of that defensive responsibility and the grind that it puts on his body, there's a aggregate effect because of all the grind on his body from 2 runs to the Stanley Cup final in the past 2 years. That's a big thing about this season for all of us on Panther Pourri, that they got to find a way to get into the playoffs. And when they get there, they're at their top. They're in top shape. It seems pretty difficult from the outside given how much hockey they've had to play. Whereas like Toronto, they only had to play 1 round last year. The Panthers played 4. Carolina only played 2 rounds last year, and that was only 11 games. So the Panthers played, doing the back of the napkin math in my head,
210 over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
Well, and only one guy has played in every single game, Sam Reinhart. That's the only one guy has. So the moment where we thought the game was won, I'm going to go quick on this one. The first Matthew Tkachuk goal, and then after Matt Zuccarello bumps Matthew Tkachuk into Marc-Andre Fleury, and then a scrum ensues, and then both of them get a 4-on-4. I just thought the attitude overall of that game truly changed, and it was another one of those goals similar to when Jonah Gadjevich laid a hit on Jeff Skinner on Monday. That was their moment where there was that one collision, even if it wasn't on purpose. At least in my opinion, I don't think it was on purpose. That really started a little bit of brouhaha, chaos, and then it changed everything after that. It was another one of those getting into the opposition's heads.
Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk lugs the accidentally on purpose, getting in somebody's face in their personal space, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm fine with it as long as you're not like actually hurting or injuring anybody. This is a physical sport, so the contact is expected. And as long as you're not trying to hurt somebody, cough, cough. Damn, I forget who did it in the last game. It was Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
Who like elbowed Tkachuk right in the face and pretty deliberately. So that wasn't great. I didn't like that. But I'll say that's probably the same answer for me as far as like when I realized it. But looking back, I feel like when they were just ready to move on from the disallowed goal, when Barkov was slightly offside or whoever was slightly offside, and they were still knocking on the door, that's probably in hindsight when we should have realized, oh, they're not losing tonight. Like, this is only going one way. Because, that could have been the momentum that Minnesota used to get back in the game, tie it up, maybe get the home crowd behind them. And there was no semblance of that whatsoever. The Panthers were like, all right, it's not 3-1 anymore. Let's go score again and make it 3-1.
And the fact that there was a big shot differential at the beginning of the game and how much it gradually shifted. The Corsi 4 at 5-on-5, 18-8 in a period that the Panthers were already leading. So they truly went to that shutdown hockey and then just went on a check, as Darren Pang said it. It was a checking clinic for the Panthers right after that. It was just like no room to breathe for the Minnesota Wild after that. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss one word of our feelings on the road trip now that it's come to an end and that the Panthers will now return home for one, but they won't be traveling far after their one home game. So we'll discuss how we're feeling overall as the Panthers continue to battle for the top of the Atlantic. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And get ready to take on the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get 100 in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste 100. Maybe make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Third and final segment here on this Thursday, December 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here with TJ Peterson of the Panther Pourri podcast here on the show. And if there was one word that you had to describe this 3-2-0 road trip for the Panthers, because ups and downs, low scoring, start to shutouts, to just the floodgates opening these last two games for them, what would be one word of your overall feelings for this positive end to the trip?
Let me posit what I'm about to say by making a point that they call it the regular season, but it's kind of a misnomer because it's pretty irregular. In this league, like, nothing really surprises you on a night-to-night. Like, if the Panthers go into the next game against St. Louis and St. Louis wins 6-0, that's not the outcome that you expect, but it's not like you're going to be talking about that game for the rest of your life. It's like that. I was so shocked that the Blues won 6-0 against the Panthers. It's pretty irregular, and there's really no other way, no better way, maybe is a better terminology here, to describe a road trip where the Panthers go 1 goal, 0 goals, 0 goals, 6 goals, 6 goals.
It just just doing quick math, 14 goals, 14 if you count the shootout, 14 goals in 5 games. So it's like, okay, Panthers average 3 goals a game, right? That wrong. They got shut out. Yeah. So it's like they won every single game. No, not quite. not that for this team.
Yeah, this is a real mean median mode. Going to have 3 different numbers here.
Yeah.
So it's all about how you measure it.
Yeah. So my word that I want to describe is just satisfactory. That's just the way I would describe this. It's, I said after the Oilers game that that win wouldn't necessarily change their season because we're still in December. There's still 30 plus games. You still have to play Toronto three times. You still have to play Carolina one more time, Washington twice. Tampa Bay, they haven't even faced once. They will in the upcoming weekend for them. So there's still a few measuring stick games for the Panthers, but I don't even know if we can call any regular season games measuring stick games for the Panthers as a team that's still, because the mission is really still at this time to at least get in the playoffs healthy. I know winning the division is nice and everything for the Panthers, but really that's why I come out satisfactory, because it's not, you don't see this team losing any momentum, and it's just like, but if you looked at the box score, didn't watch this game at all, and then you're looking for number 9 in the lineup to see how did he do, it's like, wait, he wasn't in? Oh, the Panthers found a way. It's still another one of those games where someone's missing. I mean, the Panthers went 6-3-1 without Barkov this year. So that's another thing of just someone stepping up, and this is coming from someone who doesn't necessarily believe in the next man up when it comes to just a superstar player, and someone like Barkov, or even a second line center who provides so much identity in Sam Bennett. Maybe Anton Lundell is definitely, maybe he's a very close thing to next man up, because we definitely saw that in the postseason when Sam Bennett was out after taking that shot to the hand last year. So that's why I say satisfactory as my word for this road trip.
Yeah, talking about the next man up mentality and the idea of it happening on this Panthers team, I was thinking about the forwards, and you can probably put all of them into like 2 main groups. One being your force multipliers, your Barkovs, your Reinhardts, your Tkachuks. You put these guys on a line, and the other 2 guys on that line are all of a sudden so much better. And then the second category is guys that are, they're malleable. They're ready to play with whichever one of these superstars, and they have pretty distinct games. Like Tkachuk's game is pretty different from Reinhardt's game, and pretty different from Verhaeghe's game, and pretty different from, it's more similar to Bennett's game than the other 2, but it's not quite the same either. One is a winger, one is a center. But I digress. It's a perfect combination. They just mesh so well with these guys. I mean, a perfect example of category number 2 is Evan Rodriguez. He can play with anybody on this team, and he had another strong game tonight. He is playing pretty well right now. We love to see it. $3 million for the next 3 seasons, including this one. Great job, Bill Zito.
Yeah, another one of those depth signings that just and hey, we can't be surprised that we saw this coming, especially like I even said even before last year, just the history of him playing with McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, and everything in that for his career. And another one of those Buffalo Sabres that just didn't succeed in one place, but succeeded in another place for them. But before we get out of here, TJ, because you are one of the 3 hosts of Panther Pourri, do you have any Pourri for us by any chance?
So we're approaching the college football playoff. I'm curious as to who you'd like to take it home. This year feels pretty wide open. You like college football, right?
Can Florida State win it? No, they can't win it. They went 2-10. But I gotta go with I'll go with Texas. Why not? Let's go with Texas.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they got two QBs, great defense from what I can tell. I haven't watched a whole lot of them, to be totally honest, but that feels like a good pick. I don't really have an argument. Some of the other teams I'm looking at, I mean, there's only 12, but I would say don't sleep on Notre Dame. Every time they've played a quality team this year, they've looked like a very quality team themselves. NIU, outstanding. That was a very strange result, all things considered. And after them, I mean, Georgia's Georgia. Oregon has one of the best quarterbacks. I don't necessarily think he's better than Cam Ward, but the Heisman voters seem to think that. Cam Ward was probably the best quarterback and maybe the best player in college football this year. And, so that makes them a threat. And I'm excited to see what some of these really good players on Boise State and Arizona State can do. It seems like they're being written off a little bit too early. Let's see if they can prove people wrong.
Yeah, and the Heisman Trophy race, this was like probably the best Heisman Trophy race since the year of Randy Moss, which we hope the best for Randy Moss's health.
Yeah, exactly.
Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson. So this was a really great year when it came to that race and just overall for college football. Now with an expanded playoff, some home college football playoff games instead of neutral site games, that's going to be a little different this year for them. So, and also Notre Dame, I just laugh because it's like, yeah, you're not a top 4 seed, but that's what happens when you're independent. So
yeah,
you chose the NBC money. This is what you get. So
yeah.
So that'll be our little Pourri for this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast with TJ Peterson of Panther Pourri. Thank you once again for joining me to recap this 6-1 victory for the Florida Panthers over the Minnesota Wild. So tell everybody where they can follow you and your work online, my friend.
Well, first, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this almost as much as I enjoyed the Panthers winning 6-1 on the road. Always satisfactory when you can do that. We are at Panther Pourri on Twitter. We are at Panther Pourri on Instagram. PantherPourri.com is where you can find all the links to our podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. I don't know what Androids use nowadays, but I'm pretty sure we're on that. And we are going to put out pretty much weekly podcasts for the rest of the season. So check us out if you can't get enough of the Florida Panthers, which right now is a pretty good time to be a Florida Panthers fan. Might want to check it out.
Yeah, check out that podcast, the unfiltered version of Panthers, but it's some good laughs and some good conversation, which I definitely enjoy listening to. So TJ, thank you so much, and I will see you hopefully very soon, my friend.
Yes, and the listeners will have added incentive because I'm sure you're going to be on it pretty soon.
No doubt. So thank you once again. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with TJ Peterson, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're to your team every day.